The Pokemon TeraLeak. Big leak. Huge leak. This isn't even plugged in. Ocean leak. Lots of bad stuff. Lots of good stuff. I love the good stuff. I've been full-time studying Pokemon design origins for almost a decade now, so seeing cut Pokemon and early drafts of Pokemon that didn't make it into the final game is my jam. So this video is all about the leaked Gen 3 beta Pokemon. We're going to go through them and explain something about them, and you're bound to learn something. I mean, we learned quite a few somethings making this video. Some notes before we get into it though. While a lot of these cut Pokemon have all their data, things like type, size, Pokedex entries, signature moves, and even listed official etymologies, a lot of them also don't, and only have their name and their sprite. We're kind of on our own trying to figure those ones out. And that feels unfair because then some of the other ones have multiple names listed in the data, alternate names, like they hadn't decided what to name it yet. Like Donkey, also being named Bakuda, and Darakuda, and Gudon, and Donka. That's a lot of names. Another note, look at it. That's clearly just an early draft of Camerupt, who you should know already, and I've explained in other videos. So we'll skip it. And we'll also skip all of the others who are just earlier versions with no dramatic difference. Pelican, or Pelicargo, similarly is just an early draft of Pelipper, but it does have a notable difference I can explain. That little blip on the back of its head. It could resemble the handle on a ship wheel, but more likely, I think its big pelican beak is supposed to resemble a big cartoon burglar bag. And so that's just the big tied up string around the opening. Also, its hair kind of makes me think of Swellow. Swellow's nowhere to be found in this. Did they split it? Meanwhile, there's Yamanonushi, who's just a very, very early Nuzleaf Shiftry, even. It is visually very different, though it's also kind of just a Tengu. I'm done with this. Though it's also kind of just a Tengu who had these shoes, these noses, these Buddhist prayer beads, were red. The works. When you think of a Tengu, you think of this. Interestingly, a lot of these Pokemon also come with developer notes. Notes from the Game Freak survey from a higher up as feedback for the designer of the Pokemon. The feedback here, in this case, is it's just a literal Tengu. Yep, and that's why it was changed quite a bit into the Nuzleaf and Shiftry you know today. Komaru, it is an acorn, so beta C dot in a way. And the little green plant stem coming out of its mouth could be like an acorn seedling just starting to burst out from the acorn. But it's also like how tough guys are seen with a toothpick or a stem or a little cigarette sticking out of their mouth. And it's also wearing little Geta, those traditional flip-flops, and its helmet is kind of like a samurai or Japanese foot soldier helmet. Like it's part of the military now, but oh, it's going to turn Ronin, hence it evolving into a dark type. Boy Yato! Yep, that boy is a Yeti. Yeti are often compared to Sasquatch, and the most famous Sasquatch is of course Bigfoot, hence Boyato's Bigfoot. With a mouth in it? I think it's mixing in another Yeti-adjacent cryptid, the Mapinguari, if I'm pronouncing that right. It's said to roam the Amazon rainforest. Imagine Bigfoot, but replace its whole mouth with just more hair, and then give it a giant mouth in the middle of its torso. Freaky, and not something to meet in the woods. They just moved that mouth to the foot because Bigfoot. B! I don't like its eyes. Funnily, in the version of the game that the TeraLeak got, B is in the process of being replaced by Wingull, of all things. Everything in the data is Wingull, except for the sprite and the name. And quite a few of the cut Pokemon are in the process of being cut that way. But design-wise, it could be an early version of Illumise, being kind of the right colors and being a fly with huge, potentially bright eyes. It could be inspired by the nocturnal sweat bee or similar other flies and bees. But this one has large compound eyes because it hunts at night. And also, its color scheme is similar to bees. But like the Pokemon bees, not real. You think the name led to it being cut? It could also be the robber fly, similar color scheme again, as they hunt by ambushing, and have some of the fastest vision in the animal kingdom, even amongst flies, seeing at over 350 FPS, like a flash! I wonder if its eyes flash, like a camera flash, or if they glow at all like Christmas lights. It's possible, but the world may never truly know. Tota, or Kuroboshi, was originally Beta Clay Doll's Prevo. It's one of those toys that always stands upright no matter how hard you knock it around. It's a Okiagari Koboshi, and it's black. Kuro, hence this name. But the other name It teeter-tottas around, does it not? While these dolls were normally made of paper, this Pokemon is rock type, but notably in ancient China, papier-mâché was hardened to the point of almost being hard as rock in order to make helmets. And while it evolves into Clay Doll in this beta, it was Nobinyobi who was later replaced with Baltoy in the data. Fun. Also, I love it! I love this design so much! The back sprite looks like it's wearing a sombrero for some reason though, but the front sprite, I love this design. Is it supposed to be a barnacle with algae hair? Unfortunately, like with B being Wingull, Nobinyobi is already a Baltoy in most of the data. But maybe etymology will help. The name is straight up the Japanese name of the Dobson fly. The males have these huge pincers and the females don't, but they do come in bright yellow greens. It does strike me as more of a feminine mon too, and Yobi means jovial woman, so maybe it's supposed to be a Dobson fly larva or pupa with hair? But made to be extra cute. Nobi means stretch or growth, so it's implied to be young, so that's my theoretical idea, I guess. If it's not just a very stylized Dogu, that is, like Baltoy and Clay Doll. Some Dogu have little pointy heads, and being super ancient artifacts are often dug up from the ground, potentially under grass and plants. Green like its hair. Yeah, that's another guess for sure. But please enlighten me if you know more. Kurappa. A leaf-loving kappa, a yokai, reworked into Lombre later on. And on that note, Hasubu. Beta Lotad. Ooh, Mimimi or Mimime. Pick me! Pick Mimimi! This would eventually become Masquerain. Honestly, I think it pulls the wings resemble eyes thing better than Masquerain does, and maybe that's just because its body is like in a little hoodie, and the edges of the hoodie resemble like lips. And it has snakebite piercings. Or actually, I guess its body is supposed to be just a giant floating eye as well. Those are the edges of the eyelids, and then the floaty eyes are like weird eyelashes. Yeah, I think it is that, because its name is just kind of Japanese for eye 3 times. Like, Yorori, meaning darkness or grudge, is clearly Beta Sableye. But instead of eyes made of sables, it's using a reading stone, which is what the ancient world used before glasses. Fun fact, a part of me hates that I have to sleep. We spend a third of our lives doing it, or at least attempting to, and it's hard, especially when you've got a silly brain that wants to just observe everything all night. Oh boy, the house just creaked. The neighbor's dog is taking a leak. My partner is snoring and having dreams speak. My sleep tonight sure seems bleak. But it doesn't have to, thanks to today's sponsor, Ozlo, and their Sleep Buds. Tiny Bluetooth earbuds designed with sleep in mind. Not only are the 4 sizes of silicone wingtips extra comfy and secure, even for side sleepers, but they block out sleep-disrupting sounds and replaces them with any soothing sounds you like. It does this all while sensing biometrics too. It can tell when you're asleep, and can then switch from your streaming audio to just blocking out sounds that could disrupt your sleep. It also helps you stay cozy with personalized sleep reports in the app the next morning, which can help you figure out exactly what gives you the best sleep. The 10-hour battery life makes sure they last all night. And have I mentioned how surprisingly comfy they are? I barely feel these. If you'd like to check them out, there's a link in the description and the QR code here. And use the promo code Lockstin for $10 off. Big thanks to Ozlo for their support. Good night. Skark, or Sharkin, a dark sword shark. As cool as it looks, I understand why it was shortened and turned into Sharpedo. Right now, Sharkin is just kind of a generic, mean-looking shark with a sword skewered through it. Though, come to think of it, using a sword for a fin could be akin to it being a prosthetic, since a lot of Asian fishermen capture sharks, cut off just the upper fin for shark fin soup, and then toss them back into the sea. Yeah, that'd make me super resentful and super dark type also. Toroika means squid. Toro means melting, but not like ice melt, more like how fatty food melts in your mouth like a well-cooked calamari, aka squid steak. I wonder if its actual mouth would have been the red opening in the top part of the fan thing. Also, what are assumedly its eyes, or fake eyes, remind me of Naruto, those swirly shrimp things that often go in ramen. Maybe this mon would have been food related. I wonder if it's supposed to also be like if a squid was crossed with a Kasa Obake. That'd be cool. Maki, later Ubausadi's nuts, is a nanny rabbit. It has this dex entry, a Pokemon that wraps its tail around to make a cradle while raising its child on its back. Sometimes it bonds with a different creature. Sometimes it may accidentally drop its child. It brushes its teeth by gnawing on hard objects. It also has the signature move, Milk Time, which has it withdraw from the battle and forcefully feed milk to the child on its back, likely to heal itself while switched out. But yeah, this rabbit is a foster mom. Rabbits are not only very prolific, but also commonly adopt other rabbit babies. Being prey animals, their parents die all the time, you see. I am not a big fan of Shroomish being happy. Why are you happy? Stop! It doesn't really need an explanation because it's just kind of yellow and happy now. More of a puffball mushroom, I suppose. Though interestingly, there was a middle evolution between it and Breloom. No data about that though, besides it being in the plan. But looking at Beta Breloom now, it definitely reminds me of many, many fancy breeds of pigeons, of all things. That one with the neck aimed so far back, and the shape of the head, and even the way its feathers, which could also just be the peels from the tops of mushrooms, are pointed in all sorts of directions, like how many fancy breeds of pigeons have feathers that just go willy-nilly. Definitely reminiscent of a Terrabird also, or a generic Dromaeosaur. Raptor dinos, which is definitely what regular Breloom pulls the most from. Galbi, or Bisquial, is a hibiscus Gyaru girl. These games were in development towards the end of Gyaru fashion being popular in Japan, but it kind of bringing back the whole Jinx issue probably played a role in it being cut too. It evolves into Yu-U, later Rylily, a spider lily lady who is potentially a precursor to the whole Gardevoir Ralts line. Given its flowy, leafy-like dress and its Pokedex entry, it has long antennae that are highly sensitive, capable of sensing subtle air currents to understand the thoughts of its enemies. That's literally just like the Ralts line using their horns to psychically understand the emotions and thoughts of others. Plus, consider Wally, whose main Pokemon is the Ralts line, and he's got an association with spider lilies already too. The fan favorite, Warabbit. Really, I could put them anywhere in this video because surprisingly, it is nowhere in the game data. It is just leaked in the game documentation, so it was planned but never made it into the game. It's the water starter before they switched over to Mudkip. It's a rabbit with a pool floaty lifesaver. What do rabbits have to do with the water? Well, swamp rabbits are a thing. But not many people know that, which is probably a part of what led to it being cut. Your starters have to make some sense right away. Don't want it to become a generic, it's an animal with an elemental power slapped on for no reason kind of series. You know, there's already some real Pokemon that are pushing that. But simply, a swamp rabbit is a cottontail rabbit that lives in the swamps and wetlands. They swim real good because they have to. Now look at this thing. Like Warabbit, it's also not in the game data, but it is in the documentation. Without a name though, but its description is parasitic Pokemon, parentheses, skulls of various Pokemon, end parentheses. It's the green blob taking over the Aerodactyl skull in there, you see it? That's ultimately a little too dark for Pokemon, I suppose, so while it made it past the concept art stage, it never made it coded into the game stage. Potty! I understand why they later changed the name to Kanbok, which just means shrub. And yeah, it's a basic baby tropical or savanna-ish shrubbery. Perhaps it's a very young baobab tree, or maybe it's a very young banana tree, given what it evolves into. But we'll get to that after I mention that it stores water in its body, which it can expel in a shower-like fashion while spinning. It's like those lawn sprinklers that spin and just shoot water every which way. It eventually evolved into Tropius, but there was a middle evolution planned as well. But now, Beta Tropius, ow, that's green! And I'm in front of a green screen right now! It's basically still Tropius, the bananas got flipped around, and it's horrendous. It's just Tropius, but it's horrendous. Katakata, or Komari, Ko means child, and Kima can mean the space between the trees. It's very fitting because this guy is basically a little Kodama. Quote, it is known to guide those who are lost in deep forests with the sounds of its horns. People who see it are believed to become happy. It shakes its head, side to side, producing a clear, bell-like sound similar to a xylophone, using the tones to communicate with others. Yeah, that description could literally just describe Kodama. It's like a little Korok, and it's also just like a wooden doll toy, painted to look like many indigenous artifacts. Mono Rabby. I mean, I get it, it's a rabbit with one ear, so it hears in mono, and I agree with Game Freak's critiquing note. Looks deformed. No wonder it was scrapped. Stambu. It's Stump! It's Stump! It's Stump! But it's not dead! It's like a tree stump with fruit on it? Well, maybe those are like red slime molds that sometimes take over trees, huh? Yeah, there are much, much better ways to do dead tree monsters. Hence Trevenant. Rikugan. Like Rikugan? the land on the shore. It looks like a cartoony cannon with feet, and a fish is loaded into the cannon. Fish cannons are real and hilarious, but I don't know. Gin means silver, which is a common color for fish scales. Maybe there's a Japanese pun I don't understand. Hence the Game Freak survey note, I like the idea, but ... Those dots are carrying a lot of meaning. So, apparently, it's a good idea for a Pokemon. It just looks like that. I wonder if it eventually became Leap. So, according to higher-ups at Game Freak, Are is too dramatic to be a Pokemon concept. Unfortunately, the only data on this mon is that note, the name, and these two sprites. When I first saw it, I immediately thought, is that like a depressed siren? And I moved on, not wanting to think about it. But now, looking closer, it has a dog collar and like Snoopy looking ears and a Snoopy looking head shape. Look at the back sprite. That's blue Snoopy. And its front legs are also kind of like a dog's legs, real skinny and they end like that. Oh gosh, is this a dog who's depressed because it's missing its back legs and that's a cloth over where its back legs should be? Like how a lot of people with deformed legs in wheelchairs will have a cloth covering their legs. Oh, wait, is it a Selkie? Selkies are mythical seals that can turn into human women when they take off their skin. Imagine a seal fursuit. They can take off the fursuit and there's a real human in there. But they also enjoy being able to put that skin back on and become a seal again. Most stories involving Selkies are incredibly depressing. Usually, a man does not want them to go back to being a seal and so steals their seal skin and holds her in captivity as his wife. His very depressed and distraught wife, who bears children but feels no real love for them compared to her love of the sea and being a seal. That could perhaps be what the flappy fabric here is, supposed to represent the magic seal skin, but like only half of what it needs to properly transform. As far as I can tell, its name is Aw, like what you say when you see something sad and pitiable, and re in this case means example. Are is an example of something pitiable. Yeah, that's too dramatic to be a Pokemon concept. Who designed this? You're fired. It'd be really funny if they were still working at Game Freak today. Keto. So Keto means ribbit, and it makes a melody out of them. It's a frog who sings and brings the rain, a common folklore trope, especially in Asian media. And that's why its tongue is, like, weird. It's kind of like Greninja's, only instead of a scarf, it's a treble clef, but it might also not be its tongue. That might be like intestines, because if you look real close at its mouth, its tongue is there and a different color. I guess it being intestines isn't that weird, because the whole Poliwhirl line, those swirls are intestines, but at least they're still inside. It evolves from Oltoma, whose name means sound tadpole, and it's got a record spinning on its head. It uses its tail to come up and scratch the record like a DJ. Also, its main body is shaped kind of like a music note. Mossme, a tiny moss-covered rock baby. Very decorative, common in aquariums and zen gardens. Not much about it other than that, though. But it goes from grass type to grass electric when it evolves into Kodomon, which its name is kind of strange. It means child Mossme, according to the official etymology, anyway. But like it's Mossme's evolution, so it's not a child anymore, unless Mossme is a baby. I don't know. Now it's got clown hair, a clown party hat, clown button, clown striped legs, but it's also got Oni fangs, and I guess that party hat is also like an Oni horn, and Oni do have associations with rocks and lightning, and according to its Pokédex, which also lists it as the small Oni Pokemon, by the way, it says it absorbs electricity using its horn, including from sources like household electrical outlets. It appears at places struck by lightning. Its horn grows annually, and the larger it is, the more respect it gets from its peers. Notably, there is the similarly colored Ushi Oni, which was said to live by mossy streams specifically, and while not lightning, it was able to create floating lights. Also, the note from the Game Freak survey. Looks like Dragon Quest. Not even any specific monster, just the franchise as a whole. Looks like Dragon Quest. It was planned to evolve again, but no data of its evolution exists. Perhaps then, yeah, baby, child, and then its evolution would be adult. Poochie! Yeah, it's a pooch, but it's also a poodle that's also a lychee berry, or the Pokemon World equivalent, a lychee berry. Is it like a Slurpuff a decade ahead of time? It is fitting of Hoenn, though. Lychee grow in the tropics of Southeast Asia up to the very southernmost Japanese islands. Kujata. I am only going to read Game Freak's critique notes. It's a literal peacock. Now, while Trapinch didn't change really, it was not originally part of the Flygon line at all. Flygon had a whole different basic stage, which we'll get to next. But the Game Freak note is interesting here. I'd like it to evolve into a mayfly. While mayflies are not antlions, they are very similar, and their larval stages look and act just like Trapinch. So they changed up the Flygon line, made it a little more antlion mayfly-y, and made Trapinch the basic stage of it. Perfect. It replaced Yakoko, who looks just like a dragonfly larva crossed with a silverfish almost. Vibrava didn't change much, just some colors and sizes of parts here and there, but Flygon is super different now. It's bug dragon type, though in a later build it became bug flying. And it's silver. Its dex entries talk about it living in water. It's basically just a dragon crossed with a dragonfly right now. It's cool to see how much that changed when Trapinch was brought over. Now it's like a spirit of the desert. Shakokaku! I love him! I've always wanted a mantis shrimp Pokemon. Mantis shrimp do also live in southern Japan, and there's very little data on this Pokemon because it's in the process of being replaced with Dusclops? Of all Pokemon, but the name pulls from Shakoyaku, which is a school of Kenjutsu, Japanese martial arts with a sword. Mantis shrimp do have famously fast arm movements and would make for a great swordsman. El Hawk. Yes, the official noted etymology is the hawk, but the is in Spanish, making it not only the Blaziken Latios we've known about for a while, but perhaps there's even some Hawlucha in there. It's also a bit of a phoenix. Its dex mentions every few years its entire body is engulfed in flames and it grows new feathers. Renewal, that's what phoenixes do. And I enjoy that the main critique of this mon is that it looks like a Delibird evolution. I wonder if that is ultimately what led to them splitting it into multiple Pokemon. But actually, weirdly enough, Latios and Latios are in this beta already, like as is, like they're perfect. So I wonder if they were already working on simplifying El Hawk down into Blaziken. Suchinin is Beta Nincada. Basically, it is just Nincada, but cuter in a grouchy, muppety kind of way. Beta Shedinja also looks a bit different, but it's still based on the same thing. No notes. Saburu, though, Beta Spheal. It had no evolutions at this point and was gray to more closely resemble a bowling ball because it hunts Penpin. Penguin bowling pins. Ooh, it's such a fun idea. Very clever, because like penguins already waddle back and forth when they walk, just like a wobbly bowling pin, not quite falling down. It's so fun, and even without Spheal, these mon would have been nice if they had stayed. But alas, Swalot is a giant yellow egg now. Actually, that makes it the color of stomach acid in most depictions, which is sort of its whole deal. Lilibra is a library bird. Its wings are book pages. It's almost like how hummingbird wings move so fast that it looks like they have a ton of them, but here, it's actually a bunch of pages being flicked through simultaneously. It's definitely a smidge too artificial and on the nose for Pokemon, IMO. It would work great as a Digimon or something else though. Maybe given the tail, it's like a lyrebird, who are famous for being able to memorize any sound they've ever heard and recreate them. Those are some nuts examples. There's a whole library of sounds in that noggin. It's kind of like a bookworm nerd who memorizes every fun fact they've ever read and has to bring them up constantly. Actually, Furaputo, or Flane, is a flying flower with the ability to read emotions. It floats with psychic power. Flowers do bring out emotions in people. There's a whole language of flowers detailing what different flowers say, mean, or represent. Flane's official noted etymology is flower plus sleeping plus wobbling. The latter two in Japanese, of course. And it looks like a rain lily, which come in both the pink color of its sprite and the white color of its art. 6 petals, very thin leaves, very frail flowers, and the usually 6 yellow stamens are simplified into Flane's yellow dots. Rain lilies do live in Japan and symbolically represent bright emotions like happiness, hope, confidence, joy, new beginnings. Like when you wake up, it's a whole new day. It is fitting of its Pokedex entry. It is said to grow well and bloom beautiful flowers when raised by a person with a bright heart. Being that it is depicted as sleeping, and that's a part of its name, it could also be a Casablanca lily, which similarly comes in both pink and white, but they bloom at night. So Beta Clamperl and Huntail are super cool conceptually, and then they changed them. They are still cool now, just for different reasons. Huntail is still a gulper eel, viperfish, moray eel, or fish that uses the end of its tail to lure in its prey. But the tail in the beta is even more alive. looking. And I think that's because it is. Beta Clamperl isn't just sleeping in some clam body. It's scared. It's using sticks jammed into the clam to keep it from closing its mouth. And the clam has eyes. It's angry. So I think upon evolution, the predatory clam swallows the little pearl dude, and the pearl moves to the very end of its tail and becomes the lure, hence it being so much pinker than the rest of Huntail and the sprite. Spooky! Beta Hariyama isn't much different. The back of its Mawashi moves up and kind of resembles godly wings or war flags on some samurai. Beta Makuhita, though, is a totally different color. Blue now. And its Mawashi is like a whole pulled up onesie now. It's kind of cute. And it originally had a Prevo before it too. This is Hakeyu, a little baby Makuhita. Its name pulls from Hakeyoi, which is a phrase shouted by sumo referees when the action kinda stalls, like, come on, get on with it, be confident, show them your energy. Very common in junior divisions. And it has a historically interesting note in it too. Game Freak noted in the little critique survey thing, too human. Also, sumo themes are difficult in Korea. And that's because at the time, any media shown in Korea couldn't be too culturally Japanese, which sumo definitely is. It's kind of like if Florida or Alabama decided to ban movies that were too Californian because it's damaging to their culture. Pyoko and Ninfu. Technically there's no data supporting that they are the same line, but they are right next to each other. And also look at them. A bright caterpillar larva pupa thing, and a bright lady bee with butterfly wings for hair. That's definitely a bit out there, hence Game Freak's note to make it closer to an insect. It's a little more fantastical than most Pokemon. Ko means child, which it clearly is. Pew is like swoosh, whoosh, or a small whistling sound. Pew. Made by the wind most often, and its lips are in that little whistle shape. And actually, Pyoko means hopping or up and down, moving lightly, nimbly, and in small leaps, which it would have to do without legs. Now, fu on its own is a simple word without too many meanings. It can mean negative, pawn, minus, to, viscera, poem, cloth, guts, wind, news of someone's death, woman, sheet of paper, wheat bread, talisman, a thick growth of trees and grass. I could go on, but the only ones I see as applicable are woman, because she's clearly very feminine, and bees are like 99% female, and maybe wind, given that it can fly and has those butterfly wings, and Pyoko referenced wind already too. It was probably bug flying type, but we don't have that data. And I wonder if it was supposed to be a Southeast Asian handmaiden moth. They are sometimes said to look like a cross between a butterfly and a bee. The Pokemon just made that a little more literal. Backing up to Pyoko, the Pyo could be for peep or high-pitched chirp noise, which can apply to crickets and such, but like 99% of the time, it's applied to baby birds. So maybe it doesn't evolve into the butterfly bee after all. Did they take this thing's body plan and turn it into Torchick? After all, Torchick's beta name was Fyoko for a time, so I can definitely see that. Then perhaps, given the flowers on the head and the colors, maybe it was planned to evolve into... Kurumi is kind of supposed to be a little bird wearing an orange for a head. Wait! I just based a Fakemon on the same bird. Where is that? Oh, it's somewhere in here. Oh, goodness. Found it. This is Armon Aroma Grease. It's based primarily on the crested auklet, which is a bird famous for smelling like citrus. Specifically, their heads smell like oranges. That's cool. I guess Kurumi turns the orange fruit idea all the way up. Notably, Mandarin orange in Japanese is mikan, fitting that end bit, mi, but mi is also fruit. Ku is sky. Kuru can mean to arrive. The sky fruit has arrived! And it looks anxious. Plapass. Oh god, the name. It's a plain compass. Plain, compass, Plapass. Nothing naughty at all. It's a baby Lapras? Oh, I wish it was, but it's not. It doesn't swim whatsoever. It flies. Earlier on it was ice flying type, but then it was made mono flying. It would have been the first mono flying Pokemon. And then it was cut. It is essentially just Lapras though, but sky themed. According to the Pokedex, it loves carrying people when flying. It flies silently, offering a perfect ride. So it's like if a Plesiosaur or a Lasmosaurus was a bird. That's what I'm getting from it. Plapass. Oh my god, Beta Skitty, what did they do to you? Or I guess, oh, what did they undo to you? Why is it standing around like a squirrel? Why is your hair that? Why do your front feet look like tiny teats? Oh, and let's just say I definitely understand why they closed Skitty's eyes. Also, it was named Enekororo at the time, combining Neko, Japanese for cat, with Enokorogusa. I'm probably mispronouncing that. It's Japanese for cattail grass, which its tail resembles. Also, it's orange because it was originally fire type, and cattail grass is incredibly, dangerously flammable. Kajito. They were definitely still trying for this design from the Beta Gen 2 games. Still didn't work out though. It's like if a rabbit or a long-eared jerboa had double wide ears and was also a flying squirrel. The name ends with the common Italian diminutive suffix ito, or otto, like Pidgeotto, which basically means small and cute. And Khajiit sounds like Khajiit, like the cats in the Elder Scrolls, but unfortunately their name pulls from their fictional language, Ta'agra. I'm probably mispronouncing that. It means one who deserts, as in the noun, one who deserts. Like how I can Velociraptor around. They used it like one who deserts. One who lives in a desert. A not at all helpful tangent that nobody asked for. But Kaji is potentially an early Mincino, because it can mean chores, or housework, or house cleaning. Could it have behaved just like Cincino and Mincino? A cute little furry thing that helps with dusting and cleaning? Could be. Beta Electrike looks worse, but not much different. Same with Manectric, but they evolved one more time originally into Ryo. Ryu. It's just Raikou without the K, and No, I don't like this. I'm not okay. I hate this. Why do your front legs gotta also be a part of this star mane thing? Like, I kinda get it. Lightning comes from the sky and it's bright. Stars are in the sky and they're bright and there's the whole speed of light and all that. But let's just say I am so grateful it was cut. They took maned wolf to a whole new level. Why is it so lion-like now? I guess it is kind of based on Raiju, I suppose, which is a shape-shifting lightning god who's most commonly a dog or wolf, but it can take any animal form. That doesn't mean it should, though. Berumusu. Definitely an idea that they did better with Snover and Obama Snow in the next generation. Plus, like, Hoenn. Tropical. Are there any completely snow-covered trees in Hoenn? Jayu is a Japanese term meaning snow monster, but it refers to trees that are completely buried in snow just like it. So, in the snowfields, they look like just a big bump in the snowfields, maybe with some spooky-looking branches coming out. This Pokemon's just that. Beta Spinda. I like that its ears have spirals too. That's a fun touch. But originally, it evolved into Pautsu. That little guy I showed you earlier. It's like a pink panda? Mongoose? Rat? Very little is known, but I can definitely see it being reworked into Zangoose, especially since in the Pokedex it's right next to Suvia, which is an armored viper with legs, or a snake going to a brony convention. Very, very little is in the data about these two, but the Japanese name Pautsu is like panda crossed with Mongoose. Suiva, though. Interestingly, that's just the Japanese name of sorrel, which is this plant, which doesn't help. It also sounds kind of like swivel, or sliver, or sever, like Seviper. The name was definitely still being worked on. Now, this connection is kind of a proposal of mine. It's not found in the data whatsoever, but Torchick, oh my gosh, I love it. Not from the back, though. It's kind of... I love its front sprite. It's a tiny green turquoise snake with tiny legs and a candle on its tail, but the colors and the whole being a snake with legs bit matches, so I wonder if this was supposed to eventually evolve into the Beta Brony Seviper. Even if not, though, snake with a candle, because snakes like warmth, so it carrying a flame is fitting. Most snakebite venom is said to feel like burning too, and while I will absolutely guaranteed mispronounce this name, in Aztec mythology, Xucotl is a turquoise fire serpent. Oh gosh, that's the exact same color as Torchick. And then there's Hippo. There's very little data on this doofus, but I love him. It's just like if a hippopotamus had a baby bonnet and a little dorsal fin thing. Definitely a baby boy blue color on purpose, because in the dex it's right next to Charmin, who is definitely baby pink girl color. I wonder if this idea is what led to Happiny in the following generation, because it definitely looks like it could fill the same role. It's a baby Pokemon for Chansey and Blissey, and especially with a name like Charmin, you know? And it popping out of a Chansey egg. which doubles as a little baby diaper. Evolotto, later Pipper, is so fun conceptually. Like, game mechanics-wise, it's super cool. It doesn't really fit the lore, or the theme, or the general feel of Pokemon, though, which is probably why it was cut. So this very basic thing is very basic on purpose. Its whole deal is that it would eventually evolve, but what it evolved into was random. Yes, an evolution randomizer pre-built into the game. That said, though, I've seen online this guy going around, and the idea online is that it can evolve into any Pokemon, even legendaries, but the data says otherwise. There are developer notes that state when it evolves, it transforms into various different Pokemon, and its Pokedex entry includes when it evolves, it changes into a different form. None of this states any Pokemon. In fact, the notes specifically kind of limit it on purpose. Still fun though, and the name Evolotto is super fun too because it's an evolution lottery. Who will you get? An overpowered Blaziken? Or a Bidoof? Who knows? Snown. Cute name. It's a fairy with a snowman body and ice crystal wings. Bonbongo though. Yeah, I see why it was cut. What is on its butt? And is that thing on its face? Is that supposed to be its mouth, like really high up teeth? Or is it supposed to be a mustache? Either way though, it's just an ape with like drumstick, boxing glove hands and bongo boppers on its chest and gut because apes do the thing. And while there's no data that proves this, I wonder if it was planned to evolve from Panpampu. Clearly also a musical ape, like the classic Cymbal Monkey toy. I hate these things. Shio Magune, Magune from Magunette. And it's a magnet crab, obviously. Shio is Japanese for salt, which is sodium, which is an electrolyte. Salt water also conducts electricity better than fresh water, and sodium-ion batteries for small cars and things. Yeah, plenty of crabs live in the tides of beaches and filter tasty treats from the sand, and this Pokemon does the same, but it filters the sand for iron shavings with its magnet. You think it eats them? Beta Spoink and Grumpig are super different looking, ultimately or inspirationally the same, however. But Ponku, Tanpu, the U is possibly dropped in pronunciation because Japanese does that often, so could be Ponk and Tanp. The heck are they? Oh my gosh, did they really go and make a bong frog? I thought this was unofficial Temu garbage. Oh, wow, I have never wanted a Mon to still have its data so much before, but all we get is the sprites and names. So are they vacuum fish? Hose? Like the garden hose with the squeezy gun on the end? Some of those have like containers attached to them to fill up with soap and stuff, or like cleaning cars and windows. It just looked kind of like if Flood was a Pokemon with the tank and the foldy water pump parts. Oh my god. If you take their names, and you split their names kind of down the middle, and swap the halves around with each other, pump and tank. As in water pumps and water tanks. So that is all they are! Okay. Well, what's next? Oh no! Absol was even more DeviantArt with the heterochromia and the having the literal yin-yang symbol on the back of its head. That is too on the nose, IMO. Kinda lame. I'm glad they changed it to make it a lot more subtle, because it's already always been the yin-yang symbol. It's just now it looks good while being that. Good is subjective. Better is not. Similarly, Beta Swablu was ugly, and here's a fun one. Meet the drastically different Beta Altaria. The linking factor is that it evolves from the ugly Swablu, but it's named lightly because it looks like a light line when flying, which it's almost constantly doing. It is the white dragon Pokemon in the Pokedex, explaining the earlier name it had, Ululan, long being Chinese for dragon. And I wonder if it's supposed to be like a basilisk, though it's technically more of a bird snake, but that's still fitting because lightly here wraps around the enemy's body, constricting them, and finishes it by striking with its beak, according to the Pokedex, which is what boa constrictors do. Winged serpents are also super big deals in various mythologies across the Americas. Future Lockstin here. This Altaria could also be pulling from Ming She. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but it's a sometimes draconic snake with 4 wings and an incredibly loud voice with which to sing. On top of its dragon typing, big singing like this is Altaria's whole deal too. So by now you might have noticed that there's quite a lot of like South America in here. South America is mostly tropical like Southeast Asia and southernmost Japan, and that could be all, but actually I went ahead and downloaded most of the leak files, And in there you can see documentation of like Game Freak's research trips where they travel the world taking lots of pictures and doing research. And within that documentation there were pictures from Machu Picchu. I have always thought since back in the day that the Super Ancient Pokemon, Rayquaza, Groudon, Kyogre, those lines on them, they just strike me as very like South or Mesoamerican, you know? Something vaguely about them. And that might be why lots of these cut Pokemon also have South American vibes. That is yet to be confirmed, of course, though. Moving on, Shabu looks really cool, honestly, though not as a Pokemon. IMO. I'd love it in Digimon or Luigi's Mansion. It's right after Shuppet in the data, so I wonder if it was planned to be Shuppet's evolution. Actually, yeah, I think so, because Shuppet's name at the time was Kagebutsu, so it evolving into another Pokemon with Boo in the name tracks. Shabam or Shabang is another surprising exclamation like Boo. So that could be the etymology as well. But in Japanese and other East Asian languages, Shabu is a math elephant mine, if you catch my drift. A stimulant drug that may give you a big smile like this for a little while, but it also turns you not alive. Hence, ghost now. Was that the intent? Probably not. Or if it was, that may have been a joke name given to it as a placeholder, not something ever intended to actually release. You know, kinda like those folklore stories, you know. Granted, if you repeat Shabu twice, Shabu Shabu now means thinly sliced meat and vegetables cooked in a hot pot. I suppose it's kind of knife-shaped. Hakogame. It's a box turtle. A kind of turtle named a box turtle. Its etymology? It's Japanese for box. And for turtle. Why was it cut? Togepion sounds like Togepi, and it's also egg-shaped, but no, it's a spiky jerboa thing. Toge means spike, and Pion means jumping repeatedly like a kangaroo. Or jerboa. Zuruzu, whose name can mean sleuth and loose, like its pants, appears to be a combo of a snake and a leopard gecko, using its shed skin as baggy pants. 2 generations later, Game Freak would revisit the idea and make the Scraggy line, even keeping the same arm pose for holding those pants up. The pants are even a similar color. And again, while the game data doesn't say Zuruzu evolves into Archeon or not, they are right next to each other in the decks and have the exact same sprite colors, and they're both reptilian, so you know, Archeon or Archeon is fitting because of the Archaean period. It's one of the evolutionary eons, you know, dinosaurs. And plus, it being rock flying type, it was most likely a fossil Pokemon based on the Archaeopteryx, which Pokemon would also finally do in Generation 5 with Archeops. In the meantime though, this Pokemon was reworked into Grovyle. I mean, compare the sprites. Hey, dog! A dog. It's literally a Saint Bernard. Beethoven the Pokemon. It's also the common Saint Bernard that saves avalanche victims with first aid kits and booze in a barrel and all that stuff strapped to its body, hence the name. Oh gosh! It sure is weathery right now! Weathery is a water entity wearing a child's raincoat. It seems similar in concept to Castform, which is probably why it was cut. Sansan is the sun's son. Zaza is the onomatopoeia of heavy rainfall, and Gugu is thunderous rumbling and rapid wind. Apparently Castform and its forms were all separate Pokemon at first. Glad they changed that. Pawawa. Wait, this is the one that got changed into Castform in the data. Then why is weathery a thing? Well, Pawawa looks like if you put a Smurf through a candy corn mold. It has the power of Wawa! Baby speak for water, hence it looking like a little baby water droplet almost, and a mushed Smurf. Tinky is a tiny key battleship. Many ships and submarines and related naval technology in Japan was labeled as key because of the Kii Peninsula. It's historically where Japan built and developed most of their naval technology, and this is a fish with a body and dorsal fins that resemble classic Asian sailboats. Beta Relicanth is even older looking, and it being purple makes it like cartoony zombie undead looking old. Snorora. It's a polar bear that lives in the snow and has this purple line, which is similar to the Aurora. It's just a bear with a purple stripe. Easy to cut. Hepi and Supanku, or Hepi and Spank, are skunks? Question mark? Extra girly skunks? Question mark? I mean, skunks are all about butt stuff, and this one's name is Spank. Peppy is happy. And Peppy, I guess, and it's got these 2 stripes on its tail, like the 2 stripes on a striped skunk. And Supank is holding her tail up the same way skunks do. Being pink and yellow, and Peppy kind of looking like that with the weird green lenses over the eyes and the pink helmet and the frilly neck piece that's pink like a skirt around its neck. Are they like the girl Power Rangers? Sorry. Super Sentai? The girls were always pink or yellow. Wait, is it supposed to be spunk? Like, ooh, she's so peppy, and then, ooh, she's so spunky. She's got spunk. Plus spunk. Skunk. I really do not like these things. But what if they were supposed to be like skunks, but they smell nice? Because girls are supposed to smell nice and all that. Perfumey. Time for a second recording session because more just dropped, specifically from a later beta version of the game, so one closer to being finished, and thus, many of the cut Pokemon have been cut, and there are many more familiar faces, though they still look a bit off. Still though, we'll only cover the major differences, like how Beta Torkoal has a fluffy tail that Terapagos does. Both pull from the Minogame, mythical Japanese turtle, and its shell resembles an incense diffuser. Beta Ludicolo is before he let himself go, and he's also just more Kappa-like otherwise, but also kind of more closely resembling Colosynths, plants that bear big round fruit, like this. Milotic has a whole different head. It looks much more like your typical European sea monster though. So still the same basic lore, they just kind of already had a sea monster in Gyarados, so they made this one more like a siren, I guess. So hot. Plusle and Minun! Or I guess Plusle and Blue Plusle. But their ears! Oh god, and then their T-tails. And their much rounder bodies are kind of cute though, but the rest... Are they supposed to resemble electrons, protons, and neutrons and all that? Positive and negative charge? Because that's what I'm getting from them. And they seem to be flying through the air super fast, and their tails are like streaks following behind them because they move so fast. Electrons are often depicted this way too, but I just can't get over how ugly their ears are. Like Aggron. Meditite and Medicham look super different. Now there's like a turban instead of just the vague idea of a turban, and it's wearing typical Middle Eastern footwear. And Medicham's hair looks like Bayonetta's, even with the red band. So I had to look into it. Turns out it's a thing some dancers and martial arts women would do. It's also kind of like half of Yuri from Street Fighter's hair. And pants! A stylish, fashion-forward martial artist, it seems. Delcatty's nose looks too human. It's like straight up a nose that you'd see on a me. And Slacking is just the name. Celio and Walrein? What's with the Bidoof face? The angry old man face, that's fitting of a walrus, but I don't understand the rodent face at all. I looked through many images of eared seals on account of it having ears, and the best I got is that the fluff is due to furred seals when they're young. It kind of fluffs out like that, but it's very exaggerated here. I suppose it could be a play on the idea of rodent buck teeth being an in-between of Spheal's lack of big tusks and Walrein's huge tusks. Shiftry and Aaron are visually different, but with the same ideas. Shelgon had dragon horns. It looks not bad, but I'm glad they got removed. And Beldum originally had a body straight up shaped like a dumbbell. Beldum, that's been its name since the beginning. It's perfect. Don't quite understand why they changed it, other than now it resembles Metagross arms. Speaking of, Metang just looks like a clump of steel, I guess. It's still pretty sci-fi robotic computery though. Almost kind of like those water boatman insects too. And Wailord's got a dumpy of a behind. Also nostrils. Next is nothing. The rest are all just Pokemon we know about already, along with our amazing patrons who make videos like these possible. Spending all of our time looking at Pokemon is not the most profitable inherently for us. And yes, us. This channel supports not only me, but 3 other employees and a few freelancers. So your support in any way, no matter how small, is always appreciated. Thanks for watching, and never stop using your noggin. Make sure to subscribe, because we're going to cover everything. Also, let it be noted, this is a novelty thing. I have never once used it. But it is a Psyduck bomb.